right, welcome everyone. Looks like the waiting room has calmed down a bit, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us today on behalf of the Society of Product Safety Professionals and ADK Information Services. We are so thrilled to be here with this wonderful panel of folks who are going to share their experiences and some information about the certification program that we'll be talking about today. So the webinar is brought to you by, as I mentioned, certification program sponsor, the Society of Product Safety Professionals, and that's in cooperation with our educational partner, Virginia Tech. And of course, ADK is the program developer, and I'd like to especially acknowledge and thank Don Kornblatt here with us for all of his dedication and work in putting together these terrific programs to really support the product safety community. So thank you, Don. And I am very pleased to be here with you, moderating the webinar today and really having a really fruitful conversation with our panelists. I'm Lisa Trophy. I am currently the Executive Director of the Juvenile Products Manufacturers Association, JPMA. I'm also a board member of SPSP and have long been friends and professional colleagues with Don, who has provided tremendous support, as I said, to the product safety community over the years. We are recording this webinar, so it will be made available on the SPSP website after the session today. So if you would like to revisit or share with any of your colleagues, please feel free to do so. And following the discussion with our panelists today, we do have a few really important announcements. So be sure to hang tight till the end so you can hear all of the exciting updates about the program today. So we do also very much encourage you to ask questions as you think of them for our panelists. Use the chat box or the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen, and I'll be watching for those to come through. And if we have some timely questions, we'll just pepper them throughout the session, but we also have some time at the end. So please ask those questions, and we're excited to get started. So before I introduce our panelists and ask them to introduce themselves, I just wanted to share a little bit of information about the certification program itself. So we're all starting from the same playing field. So the 2024 certification program will open August 29th and 30th, and it will run through October. We are really pleased to feature a keynote address from the CPSC chairman, Alex Hohn-Sarek, and as the invited speaker. Following the opening workshop, there will be a series of semi-weekly webinars throughout September, and those are intended to address 5 areas of product safety which must be mastered by the professionals in the program to earn the Certified Product Safety Professional designation. Participants aren't expected to be subject matter experts across all 5 areas, but must show expertise in one area and a general understanding of the others. The topics are the 5 pillars of knowledge, and those include culture and ethics, risk assessment and hazard analysis, regulatory compliance, product investigations and data management, including artificial intelligence, and product recall management. So the program will feature 21 individual webinar sessions over the course of September and early October, which are led by 23 different instructors. And the program will close with a 2-day assessment of all students, which includes a multiple choice exam, an individual essay, and a design of a case study on a product safety related crisis or opportunity. And that is combined with an oral defense of the case study before a committee of experts. So we're going to talk about all of these elements of the program and how the panelists experienced them when they each participated in the program. So you'll really get some insight from students who participated in various different years and with different networks of colleagues. So we do have, again, all of this information on the SPSP website. You can find it there with the link to the instructors, as well as how to register. So with that, again, ask your questions in the chat box. Please feel free to do that throughout the session, and we will get started. So our panelists today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, are Jacob Borowick, Melissa Cairns, and Bill Baxter. So let's start there. Jacob, how about you introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thank you very much, Lisa. So hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Borowick. I'm a reliability engineering manager at Hasbro. So I'm working in the quality assurance department at Hasbro. Last year, I did receive the designation of Certified Product Safety Professional. So I'm the newest kind of certified product safety professional on the panel. So I can definitely talk to kind of the most recent variant of the course, and looking forward to providing as much information as possible.
Thanks,
And I'll
Jacob.
pass it over to Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill Baxter, and I am the principal consultant at Baxter Regulatory Solutions. I have been operating as a consultant for small manufacturers for the past 5 years. And before that, had experience in test labs and working directly for a toy manufacturer. I took the course in 2019, no, 2020. Melissa, you're 2019. Um, in 2020, and that was an adventurous year for us um, in the certification program, and there were a lot of surprises. But
Good old COVID. Thanks, Bill. Melissa.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. Melissa Cairns. I work at 3M Company. I'm an advanced regulatory affairs specialist working in our corporate organization in the regulatory and compliance area. Went through the program in 2019, the first program. So where Jacob can provide recent guidance, and I went through the first one. We were kind of the test subjects and had a great experience through the program, and have gained a lot of helpful insights on so many areas, and happy to share those with you today. Also a member of the SPSP board with Lisa, one of the 3 different board members that have graduated from the program, and absolutely believe that the program led me to that position as well. So happy to be here.
Great. Thank you all. And I'd also like to introduce Harold Zinn on the screen. Harold is the editor of the Product Safety Newsletter and significant contributor to the product safety community and supporting SPSP and ADK as well. So thanks for being here, Harold. We appreciate you. Okay, so let's get started. We have a couple of buckets of areas that we want to talk about today. And I think, all of you are here participating in the webinar because you'd like to learn more about this course, find out if it's right for you, if it's right for you at this time in your career. And our panelists have tons of great information to share with you. So I'd really like to start with just an overarching, what inspired you to participate in this course? We know it's robust, we know it's a time and resource commitment, but it's clearly very important to so many folks who have gone through it and how it's helped their career. So we're going to get to all of that, but let's talk a little bit about what inspired you to take the plunge and start the course. Jacob, most recent graduate, why don't you start?
Sure. So I think one of the main reasons why many of the team members that were in my kind of cohort decided to take the course was to kind of increase the level of credibility that you have as a product safety professional. So in terms of the world of product safety, there's lots of great ways to get training and learn new things about product safety, but this is really one of the only ways to actually get the designation and the credibility of being kind of an expert in the field. So I think that was certainly very appealing. Another area that was definitely very appealing to me was just the opportunity to spend so much time with a range of people all kind of aspiring to be product safety professionals. So from the experience that I had attending the courses and attending the in-person events, we did kind of build up a good rapport of the 8 team members or 8 members of the cohort that I joined and attended the classes with. We were able to kind of build strong relationships. And I know that, earlier this year when we were at ICFSO receiving our designation, we kind of all came together and we all kind of maintained a bond from that experience going through the course together. So it was definitely really great to kind of build those relationships. I also really do feel as though Hasbro, the company I work for, has built a very strong relationship with SPSP and ADK. They do offer a great range of other courses as well. I was fortunate to take the advanced product safety course about 5 years ago, and then was, looking to, do a little bit something more. So taking the formal certification course was a really great way to kind of continue learning from a very trusted member in the world of product safety.
Excellent. Thanks, Jacob. Melissa, how about you?
Sure, thanks. So similar, right? I think we probably all can agree with what Jacob had commented on, that that was definitely something that had driven us. I was in the unique position prior to my position within regulatory affairs at 3M. I was in legal affairs as a non-attorney, and so that credibility piece really was driving me at the time. I was looking for additional credibility for all the product safety work that I was doing within a legal environment, but not being an attorney. So extra kind of emphasis on that for me. I also had a lot of experience in, maybe 1 to 3 pillars, definitely regulatory compliance, that pillar of knowledge, but wanted to really learn more. It was really an educational exercise. I wanted to become a more well-rounded product safety professional. I wanted deeper expertise and knowledge within the other areas, and the other pillars of knowledge. And that's really what attracted me to the program. And then very quickly from entering the program, an an unintended driver, but definitely became a driver as I went through it, was becoming more connected in the product safety world. I think, I felt very isolated in my role, and I didn't really have a big network in the product safety atmosphere, and very quickly began to build that network and become much more comfortable within the product safety world and the connections that I was making. So definitely some drivers, unintended and intended.
Thanks, Melissa. That's a great one. Bill, how about you? What inspired you to take the plunge?
Well, like both Melissa and Jacob, I came here primarily for the credibility. I had just started my compliance consulting firm, and I was looking for evidence that I could present to potential clients that I had the information they needed and I'd be able to help. And this seemed like the best of all opportunities to get that kind of credential. And then the other factor that really mattered to me is that many of the instructors I had worked with in previous safety positions over the course of my career, and I had a lot of respect for them. And it really seemed like a great group of people to be learning from, particularly for the pieces of the 5 pillars that I didn't bring with me when I walked in the door.
Excellent. So we're hearing a lot here that, it's providing credibility for you as you go through the program and earn the designation. Certainly, the networking opportunities are very significant, and finding your place and your colleagues in the product safety community and really driving that credibility. So all really, really important factors. And I know those were your inspirations going into the program, but you really saw that all come to fruition as you completed the program and, have been on the tail end of it. So, we talked a little bit in the beginning about the different aspects of the program. So opening session, you're working through webinars on a fairly weekly basis, and ending with an exam, ending with the case study, with the essay, the defense of the case study. It's a really robust program, and I think it attacks the learning in a lot of different ways. So I think that the participants on the webinar here today would be really interested to learn from all of you, specifically, how you felt about the program and the different aspects of it, really to get a feel for what they can expect going into the program. So I know you all sort of resonated with different parts of it. Some of it was more fun than others, maybe. There were some challenging parts of it. So let's talk a little bit about the program specifically and, how you work through it. So switch it up and maybe start with Melissa this time around.
I can come off mute. Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. I think you summarized it really well, Lisa. I think it's a very robust program. There's a lot of different pieces to it. Opening workshop is, you're really focused on the education piece, and then you're kind of getting that networking. And what was unexpected for me was also the benchmarking. And so as you're going through the educational pieces and you're having discussions with your classmates, you're also learning what they're struggling with. And maybe that's similar to you, or maybe you have something to offer in that area. Sometimes it's good to know, like, oh, you guys haven't figured it out. We haven't figured it out either. Can we come up with a solution together? So there's kind of that collaborative approach to product safety where you're learning not only from your instructors, but from each other. And that's also what leads you to kind of build your network. So that's where that kind of starts, is in that opening workshop. And then moving into the webinars, I would say, my best advice there is to, attend as many as you can in person, because you are getting direct access to the experts in the field, and you can ask direct questions, get direct answers. Because there are smaller class sizes, it's a very open environment where, you can speak more freely than you would at, say, ICFSO, or a very large forum um, where there's just more ears and eyes. And so it's helpful to have candid conversations in that way, um, throughout the webinars, as well as that kind of opening workshop. And then, um, maybe one thing that I'll say just about kind of that final workshop, and then, I think we'll talk about pointers as well in a little bit, so I can come back to it. But just to comment on each of the three sections, the closing workshop is something that you want to be very well prepared for. I mean, you don't I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression that this is just something that, you attend a couple of webinars and you show up to, the opening and closing workshop. There's some studying that goes into it. There's a time commitment that goes into it. And truly, the goal of the program is to make well-rounded product safety professionals that can carry that designation. And so you have to prove that that is what you are. And that is the expectation of that closing workshop. So between the essay, which, by the way, you will get the question in advance, I definitely suggest that you write out your answer, so you can use kind of your mental energy on the multiple choice, because that is a very in depth, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about that exam, and we'll talk about the structure of that a little bit, and then really that case study. That is where you're going to shine. That is where you're going to be able to, really relay whether or not you understand the 5 pillars and every role and every aspect of product safety from kind of cradle to grave. So that's my general overview, and I think I'll hand it off to Bill.
Oh, but you hit all the good points. There's nothing left for me. I think for me, I found, so we had the very strange experience of an in-person opening workshop, and then everything else was online because COVID hit during our opening workshop. So we literally flew out to St. Louis, and by the time the sessions were over, there was nobody in the airports with us to fly home. So after that, they sort of on the fly restructured the course to all virtual, including the final session and including all of the exams. And it was still challenging. It was very important that we were as present as possible for the live webinars, but definitely blocking out time to sit through and go over the slide decks and the recordings afterwards, because just watching one time wasn't enough, and really attacking them to process the information really mattered. And then for me personally, the most challenging part of the final weekend was the exam. I was one of the people who failed a section. So I know we're going to talk about the exam in more detail later, but I was grateful at the opportunity to return and attack the section I had failed, because a lot of the material isn't necessarily the part of being a product safety professional that you're already familiar with. And it's tremendously valuable because those are the pieces that support what you do, and understanding those other pieces really helps you understand the context that you're working in, whichever part of those 5 pillars are sort of your main strengths. And I believe on to Jacob.
Thank you, Bill. So I think a lot of the points that I would have spoken through if I was the first one up have already been covered, but I will try to add a little bit more. So definitely re-emphasizing that there is a large time commitment and a large amount of kind of variety in kind of the covered materials for the course. I really did appreciate a lot of the different speakers that we had throughout the kind of overall course. So there were speakers including a CPSC current commissioner, other members of the CPSC, a lot of different members throughout industry with a lot of great experiences to share. So definitely prepare yourself for a lot of great informational learning over the course of the kind of few weeks or months of the course. I think one other thing that I would like to just talk through that's a little different than what Melissa and Bill mentioned before me is that I really did enjoy the case study portion of the class. I think one of the main reasons, as I kind of thought about this question a little bit ahead of time to kind of explain why I really liked it, is I feel like within my day-to-day job, there's always kind of a ton of compromise, and I think that's part of working at a healthy company. But I think working through this case study was really an opportunity to really think about everything through the eyes of quality and kind of through the perspective of what is the ideal outcome for a quality professional? What are kind of the ideal outcomes? And I feel like it was a little bit of a different way of thinking and allowed me to kind of really, fine tune and hone in on my quality assurance and product safety knowledge as I kind of really thought through the ideal kind of outcomes from a quality perspective. So that was a really fun exercise. And I guess, as I deliver my presentation, I think it did show to the people that were kind of the moderators for the presentation that it definitely, made me light up and made me really think about some of the great aspects of being a product safety professional and some of the great benefits that we provide to consumers of our products.
If I could just maybe add one more comment, and Jacob, that is great. I think when we first talked about this, I think you described it as therapeutic. I was like, I'm not sure if I would call it therapeutic, but it was challenging and it was very helpful to highlight kind of different strengths and weaknesses and understand what those are within yourself. So that's helpful. And I think for the audience, just one additional thing that I would add on the exam itself is I think it's extremely important to be successful in the exam to remove your internal bias. So these questions are written based on the content and the content only. If you are accepted into the program, you have already proven that you are an established product safety professional. You have the experience. We're all working full time in some capacity in the product safety world. And so we all have our own internal bias. Our companies have their own risk tolerances, and the exam is not going to allow for that. The exam is going to test you on the content as it is written and as it is delivered. So I think it's extremely important because when you're looking at the answers, multiple answers are correct. You need to give the answer that is correct pursuant to the content, not pursuant to, okay, what would I do in this situation, taking all of these factors into consideration. So just a tip that I think will be helpful for anyone kind of going into the program and taking that exam.
Thanks, Melissa. That's a great segue. And I too was going to share that Jacob told us in an earlier discussion, the case study was therapeutic. And I think that's important, right? Because, so many of us in our day-to-day do have to compromise, and that's not always easy, especially, in the product safety role. Compromise isn't always a good thing, but we have to navigate that. And I think working through the case study, Jacob, as you said, really allowed you to create an ideal scenario. And that's important work, I think, to frame what you then ultimately take back as a graduate of the program to your company and how you implement that. So thanks for sharing that. So frankly, let's get back to the exam because it sounds intimidating, doesn't it? It's not intended to be easy, is what a number of individuals have said. And we are all professionals who have been probably out of a university setting for quite some time. And so this is jumping back into waters that may be not so new or comfortable for us. So let's talk a little bit about the exam. Melissa, you shared a couple of tips already, but I think, you all had really important and insightful things to say about the exam when we had our earlier discussions. So, maybe share some tips that really helped you through. Bill, you also shared that you did not successfully complete one section, and Bill's not the only one. It's happened to a number of folks, and so there's solutions for that as well. So let's talk about the exam. Bill, how about you get us kicked off?
Okay, well, I'm going to start with the observation that not having been in college for about 15 years at the time, the idea of just sitting down and taking a multiple choice test is not a kind of thinking that you're really in practice for. And so for me, I had forgotten about the existence of the gotcha questions, which I think Melissa was pointing at before, where one of the answers is sort of maybe right according to the statute, and one of the answers is maybe right according to a best practice. But I think for me personally, a lot of the problems I had came from learning by soaking up the gist and not really studying for the specific facts. And so that's why I was recommending moments ago, those video recordings are a lifesaver. Watch them at least twice. Look through the slide deck and make notes of things that seem close together. And so that you have the details to split them up. But I also really want to point out that while tests in general are constructed with gotcha questions and to be testing what what you've really absorbed, the program is not intended as a gotcha program. And so just because you missed 1 or 2 questions on a section enough that you're below the passing, you have an opportunity to come back. You have some time to study, really try to nail down the sections that you hadn't mastered for the previous take, and then take just that section again. Because the goal of the program isn't to, knock people out. The goal of the program is to make us into strong safety professionals. And so we're all here to support each other in learning. And I think that's kind of my take on the exam. Yes, it's daunting, but everyone in your class is here to help. All the professors are here to help. Everyone is trying to get that information squished into our brains. And yeah, and I think that's the point of the program and being part of this community.
Thanks, Bill. Jacob.
Yeah, I guess I would definitely re-emphasize that the multiple choice portion of the examination was probably the most challenging for me. It definitely is worth kind of calling out that throughout the course, we had a range of speakers, and I believe that 4 to 5 questions came from each of those speakers. So there was definitely a wide range of kind of topics covered. And then in addition, kind of thinking through, who provided which information, who provided which questions, and then thinking back to kind of how they would have answered the question was also kind of an approach that I took. Re-emphasizing something that Bill said was just those recordings are super helpful. And I guess one quick plug that I wanted to make is I know that as Melissa said up front, kind of attending all those sessions up front is definitely the best thing to do. But I did want to kind of call out my unique scenario as I was going through the course. I did actually have to take a couple weeks out because I was traveling for my wedding, and I was able to successfully kind of come back, cover those courses that I missed while I was out. So definitely, be there as often as you can during all of those in-person sessions, but also just want to make sure that people are aware that there are these opportunities to kind of make up the classes if there are kind of life events that are kind of happening. So don't let that be a deterrent to kind of, taking the plunge and pursuing the certification. And then I guess with that, I'll pass it over to Melissa.
Thanks, Jacob. Yeah, I mean, I agree that the recordings, and you'll get the recordings and you'll also get the actual PowerPoint presentations, and they're huge for if you have to miss or just in your studying. I mean, as preparing for the final workshop, you're going through the slides again and you can listen to the recordings. And I think that kind of leads into maybe my final tip when it comes to the exam, which is just know yourself and know your style. So know what you're capable of, know where your weaknesses are, and read the material about the exam. I mean, there's materials about how it's structured, what you're going to be tested on, and there is strategy going into it because you get docked 1 point for a wrong answer and a half point if you leave the answer unanswered, if you don't answer at all. And so I'm not comfortable with that. I had to answer every single one. My personality won't allow me to leave a blank. And so I knew that going in, and I had a plan going into, okay, these are the ones that if my personality would allow me to, I'd leave blank. I'm going to come back to them, and I'm going to use the mental energy that I have on the rest of this, and then we'll revisit. And it really helped kind of clear my mind, get rid of some of the nerves, so that when I came back to those questions, I had a different mindset. I had already gone through the rest. I had already had a chance to kind of think through some scenarios, and I think it really, really helped me in my success. So it's really just kind of know yourself have a strategy and just stick to it so that those nerves that are naturally going to come, you have a way to handle.
Building on what Melissa said, and just to kind of maybe provide a little bit more detail on the same lines, is in terms of the formal test, it is actually kind of one big chunk of time due to the multiple choice and the essay. So kind of, or at least for my session last year, which I assume will probably carry over into next year as well, or this year, I definitely recommend, you know, my strategy as I was going through it was to take a kind of first look at all those multiple choice questions. If there were any that kind of really had me stumped, then, you know, I kind of thought through them, had them in the back of my mind as I was writing out kind of the contents of my essay. And then I was able to kind of go back to those questions once I kind of had a little bit less kind of time anxiety in terms of, you know, will I finish the essay? And then really kind of think through, which speaker is maybe the one that wrote this question? What do I think the best answer is? And then I was actually also in the same boat of, I struggled to leave anything blank. So I did put an answer for every question, even though there were a couple that I was a little bit uncertain about.
Such great tips on the exam. That's probably the most intimidating part for a lot of people, I would think. Really understanding that it's answering on what the material says. You've all alluded to that. It's not what your company would do. It's not what you think is the right answer necessarily. It's really what does the material teach us is the correct answer. And I think, Jacob, that's such a great tip to think back on who the instructor was for a particular topic or question. And, you know, I think that's another helpful tip for getting to the right solution. Also wanted to take a minute to talk about the incidents where, you know, a portion of the exam might not be successfully completed, as Bill shared. And while you do have the opportunity to retake a particular section, there's also support, right? And I know that Don and SPSP and ADK are willing to connect any students with this network of product safety professionals, or a network of alumni. I know Melissa has helped some individuals over the last couple of years, and you're not alone in this. And while it's hard, it's fair, it is a time commitment, you're not alone. And I think that's the most important thing to remember, that there's support to help anyone get through any section of this course. And as Jacob shared, it can be therapeutic going through it. So that's another positive as well. So we talked about the exam. Let's talk about the case study a little bit. I know you all had different experiences with the case study, and that's another big portion of this course that you're working on and thinking about throughout the entire time commitment. So Jacob, let's start with you. Your case study. Tell us a little bit about what you tackled and how you approached it.
Yep, sure thing. So I guess I'll start by just kind of providing a little bit kind of an explanation to everyone listening in regards to like your options with the case study. So in regards to the case study, there were two different options for my class. And like I said, I assume there will be again this coming year, but essentially you can cover some content that is kind of relevant to your current job in terms of, you know, is there a certain area that you could dive into and really, you know, provide a robust case study for of something that's happening at your current company. Or the other option is to kind of go through this more hypothetical situation, which is what I chose to do. I chose to do that personally because with my company, there were some sensitivities around kind of sharing any information that could possibly be confidential, even though, of course, that information wouldn't kind of go beyond the walls of SPSP, but it still was something that kind of made myself a little bit nervous as a representative of my company. So I did decide to use the kind of more generic one. And I think that was really kind of what led to the more therapeutic situation where it was so hypothetical and I was able to really kind of, think through all the different ideals of the product safety kind of outcome throughout the entire case study. In terms of working through that case study, it was kind of a hypothetical situation about a failure that had happened and really kind of thinking through, you know, how we address those failures, what we could do better. What are some of the obligations that we have as a result of that failure were kind of the big areas of conversation. And then in terms of executing on that case study, it is a mix of a written case study as well as a presentation. So as part of the written portion, that is something that is prepared ahead of kind of the closing week or closing last few days of the program. And then the presentation about the case study was then given kind of as part of that same couple days that we were taking the test and writing the essay. I definitely, like I said, I enjoyed both parts of it. I did enjoy kind of the opportunity to kind of, you know, look through the ideals. I kind of, as part of it, even got to kind of think of building up a company from scratch because it was a hypothetical company. So I got to make our own kind of risk assessment templates and all sorts of fun stuff. So I really enjoyed it in that sense. And overall, I found it to be a very enjoyable experience.
Bill, how about you? Your case study?
It was for me also really enjoyable. But it is the most like, that is the part of the course that is the most like what I do on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of my time is spent explaining fairly complicated situations to the upper management or management of small manufacturing companies who don't really understand all of the risks and obligations they've taken on by going into business to sell a highly regulated product. It happens. And so I approached the case study as just a full presentation of all of the options given this hypothetical failure in a children's product, which I believe was a flammability failure on children's clothing, if I remember correctly. But like Jacob, I wasn't really in a position where I was comfortable using any of my clients' issues in the course. That just, seemed beyond the bounds of confidence. Um, the the thing that I really liked about the case study is I feel like communication is a really important factor of being a safety professional that we don't spend as much time working on as we possibly could. And writing the case study was a good exercise in laying out what are the options, what are the worst case scenarios, what are the best case scenarios, and where does that lead to further on in the chain of events that have to happen. So there are ways that the particular incident in my case study could have been dealt with to stop the goods before they entered into commerce, or to go through a full recall. And so it was nice to be able to lay out how would we investigate to determine which one of those paths we have to take, what are the challenges on each one of those paths, what do we need to be preparing for on each one of those paths. But even better than that, the verbal defense, I think, was a really important piece of it, because you had other product safety professionals who you do a short presentation, 10, 15 minutes, and then they ask you questions to specifically go into detail about the case study, places where your case study might be weak, or places where you may not have gone in as much into depth because in your experience, that's something, well, everybody knows that. So the having real colleagues sit there and ask those questions, and not as, I never felt a sort of gotcha sense there. I keep saying gotcha, I don't mean to, but I never felt the sort of gotcha sense. It was really probing to see, do you understand that there are other aspects to what you have written? And I feel like that was a great way to work on sort of thinking on your feet and communicating what needs to get communicated in a safety situation.
Bill, I think you mentioned in one of our earlier discussions that, as the product safety professional within, individual companies or working with clients that, and you just alluded to it, not everybody understands all the nuances, right? So you have to connect the dots. I think you called it being the translator, which
Yes.
is a really helpful way to look at it.
Yeah, I find that what a lot of, even looking at the 5 pillars, the people who are involved in sort of the recall world don't necessarily understand the details of being in the risk assessment world, and don't necessarily understand the challenges of being in management. And then there's the other side of it, where anyone in the product safety world gets caught up in what could be called the tragedy of the goalkeeper, where everyone in your company is watching you and they pay no attention until something goes wrong. And so you can make 1,000 saves on the goal, but the only one anyone ever talks about is the one that got missed. And so connecting with other people who understand that kind of pressure is very valuable as part of this course.
Yeah,
Melissa?
Bill, I cannot agree more. And as you're kind of describing it, I'm thinking like you're mentioning all of these different roles, and I'm thinking about each one of them and their timeline and how they don't match even a little bit. And so everybody's timeline and everybody's priority is very different. And so strong communication could not be more key. And I think that's something that the case study is going to bring out of you. It's, you know, you're going to have to work on your communication. I do not love public speaking. I do not like, I continue to put myself in these positions to try to get better, but it's something where you want to, you know, you want to practice it. You want to understand your weaknesses and make sure you're prepared. I think when I went into my case study, I really built it around the 5 pillars, which is the expectation, but it's also a great way to study for the exam because you're also going to be asked to put in citations from your program, from each of the presenters. I think it's 10 citations that you're required to add. And so as you're going through and you know you're reading the pillars and you're building the pillars into your case study, you're going through the content and you're figuring out how can I weave in what was presented. And so it's a great study tool. But also what it's going to do is it's going to highlight your weaknesses as a product safety professional. You're going to learn real fast which areas do I need to brush up on and which areas when I'm up in front, like Bill said, they're going to be asking you questions. And the last thing I want is to be unprepared for a question. And so you just be honest with yourself. Where are my weaknesses? Where are my gaps? And how can I deep dive those topics so that I'm fully prepared, not only to write on it, but give an oral presentation on it and then field questions, which can be intimidating, but know that just like you have kind of a world of support around you in this community for the multiple choice examination, those people that are on that judging panel are also there as product safety professionals rooting for you. We are all one community and you know we want to see more certified product safety professionals, well-rounded product safety professionals, and celebrate each other. So although the process is intimidating, just know that um, we're all kind of there really pushing towards the success of not just the program but the field in general.
Thank you for saying that, Melissa. I think that is such a level of comfort for folks to hear that, you know, the product safety community and the professionals that comprise it are passionate and dedicated out here just trying to make sure that the safest products that we can make are available to the consumers who need to use them. And nobody in the community wants to see anyone else fail, and we're stronger when we work together. And I think that's something this program has really, really brought to light. And it's one of its, you know, most important selling points. So the case study, you know, we've talked about that. We're about 15 minutes left, and I want to spend a little time to share with our audience today how the successful completion of this program has really impacted your careers. Everyone's at a different place in their career trajectory. Everyone has different reasons for taking the plunge and making the commitment to take this course, but I think the outcomes of it are equally important, right? Some folks may be after credibility, some, you know, promotions. You know, what really was the impact of your successful completion here? So, Jacob, let's start with you.
So I guess as the newest kind of graduate on the panel, I will say that kind of I have the smallest, you know, time delta between graduating and kind of today. So in terms of the impact, I think Bill and Melissa might have a little bit more to share. But one thing that I really did appreciate about the most recent kind of graduating class is that we were all recognized at the kickoff of the kind of largest ICFSO event that they have every year. So we got to stand up on the stage in front of, I think it was about 700 or 800 people, and all receive our diplomas, which was really kind of gratifying to be able to be recognized and kind of be seen by so many different product safety professionals or not product safety professionals, but people within the product safety community, I should say. So it's really great to be able to kind of, you know, not only get the certification, but also be celebrated for it. And the knowing that kind of the greater ICFSO community was willing to kind of use the first few minutes of the ICFSO ceremonies to kind of recognize us was also very rewarding as well. So I think that was kind of my highlight so far in terms of recognition.
Excellent. Melissa.
Sure. So I'll try not to be long-winded here because I have a lot to say on the topic.
Take it.
So one thing that I will say is I think I even put this in my application to the certification program. My ultimate goal, I was in legal affairs. I said that I was doing like marketing and advertising, and I was doing product safety work. My ultimate goal in my career was to become a full-time product safety professional. And I've done that. And I do not think that would have happened the way that it necessarily did if I wouldn't have entered this program. So being able to dedicate myself full time to the product safety profession is huge. When I got appointed to the SPSP board, I was still in legal affairs, and it was my new organization that I'm in now that actually posted that company wide and kind of celebrated it. So it definitely got my name out there, got more visibility within the company as to what I'm passionate about and what I'm qualified for. So I think it definitely added credibility in that way. I mentioned that I'm on the SPSB board. I've also participated in the mentorship program at ICFSO. I have participated as one of the judges on the case study. I've participated in the admissions committee for this program. I think I had said in the beginning of this, I felt, and I think I've put it in my testimonials, how isolated I felt in the product safety world. And I have become so much more engaged, and I think my name is out there. I think my name comes up at times, like when a board position came open. The fact that my name was even thrown out there never would have happened if I wouldn't have gone through this program. And so I think it not only internal to the company, but external to the product safety world, I think has really, really helped me and given me that springboard into building the network and having great benchmarking. And I think the one example that I'll leave you all with, like a real life example of how I know this program has impacted things that I do on the daily. We had a product safety event happening in the company. We had a complaint that we were investigating, just like most companies do, or should, I should say, do. And this was ongoing, and you only have the data that is accessible to you. And I had with another fellow graduate I had a relationship with, and reached out to her, and we were communicating about this issue. And she said, hey, if it's going to help you, I can share our complaint data on that product that we sell. And she was able to provide that complaint data, and we were able to add it with ours to help our analysis and trending. And it absolutely helped us understand whether or not field action was necessary, what our risk assessment looked like. It was a great data point into our own assessment. And that is just through the networking and benchmarking and relationship building. So kind of a tangible example of how the program has helped me just in my actual role as a product safety professional as well.
Thanks, Melissa. Bill, how about you?
So unfortunately, the main driving goal that I was sure that having more credibility would drive more dollars, I have no way to measure that. But I do feature my accreditations prominently on my website, and it helps me to feel like I am competent when talking to my clients. And more than that, it's what has really helped me the most from going through the program has been the 5 pillars, because the times when dealing with small companies, oftentimes understanding that safety comes from the top needs to get communicated to the small company. Understanding the possibility of a recall and what that could entail needs to be very specifically communicated. And because of my background in test labs and in manufacturing, recalls were not something I had dealt with before then. So it really helped fill in the gaps of, what 10 years of being a professional had not prepared me for. And 10 years of other safety professionals, that's all they do. And so they have other gaps among the 5 pillars. So I think the real strength for me was that it gave me the context that I could use to connect my knowledge to the needs of my clients, and improve the communication and translation as we were going on.
I'm hearing context, confidence, credibility, all great things coming out of successfully completing this course. We have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to ask our panelists to think about the one key takeaway or best piece of advice that we'll close with. But just a quick reminder to drop your questions in the chat if you have any for our panelists. I'm happy to do that. Of course, if you think of things later, please check the website. There's lots of information there, and certainly you can reach out to any of us, Don in particular, with questions about the course specifically. But while our panelists think about their best piece of advice or key takeaway, I would like to share some exciting announcements about the upcoming program that we alluded to in the beginning. And so those of you who are listening today are getting the first peek at this. This information will be shared on July 1st. And what we are excited to announce is that the certification program is unveiling a streamlined approach to this educational opportunity that is allowing for a pretty significant reduction in the tuition fee. And so the basic changes of the program include converting the entire program from a hybrid approach, which you've been hearing a little bit about from Jacob and Melissa, how they experienced it, a combination of on-campus activities and then the series of webinars, to an entirely online virtual format, which is essentially how Bill experienced the program. So under this new program structure, participants are not going to be required to be away from your jobs, your work and home environment during these critical periods. And that also carries the advantage of avoiding additional expenses related to travel, hotel, etc. And the tuition has been reduced from $4,400 to $3,950. So that is certainly an incentive to participation and the ability to decrease those travel costs and commitments. So that information will be public and on the website, as I said, July 1st. And of course, happy to answer any questions about that as well. But not seeing any questions just yet. I will not put you on the spot. Who would like to go first? Biggest takeaway or greatest piece of advice you have for your attendees here today?
I'll jump in. I'll say, just give it 100%, give it 120% if you're able to, in terms of just putting in the effort to kind of make the most out of the program. It is all about kind of really kind of taking that next step in terms of your product safety career and really kind of validating your credentials and building that credibility. And if you put in 120%, you'll get the most out of it. It is really, I guess I'm not sure if everyone on the call has, a company that will actually be willing to, pay up front for the cost of the tuition. But I know that I really want to make the most of it. My company was willing to kind of pay for this course, and I didn't want to kind of, let my company down, I guess, in any way, but I really wanted to just make the most of it. So I think my number one piece of advice is just to give everything you have in terms of effort towards making the most of the course.
Thanks, Jacob.
I'm gonna say take it seriously and set aside the time in your week for taking the course and for working on your case study. Because if you can get in front of that and really, prioritize it as its own place, it comes a lot more easily at the end when you are not cramming.
Thanks, Bill.
So true. The case study is not a cramming exercise.
Mm.
Agree with both of those great points. I think I'll leave it with when I think about myself, when I went through that program, I wish somebody would have told me, believe in yourself. Give 110%, believe in yourself, and you're going to have moments of doubt for sure. And when that happens, reach out to your network. And if you don't feel like you have a good network, let me be the start of your network. I mean, you have my information. I think it's been out there tied to this program for a long time. When you're like, oh, this case study is not coming together, or I'm not quite understanding this risk assessment concept, reach out to whoever in your network comes to mind that may be able to help. People always in the product safety professional, in my experience, want to see product safety professionals thrive. So I'm happy to make myself available to anyone who has questions now or once you're in the program or after. But truly just believe in yourself and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Jacob, Melissa, Bill, thank you so very much for sharing your experiences, for being willing to be here today and dedicate your time to this important group of individuals who's considering the certification program. You've shared a really significant amount of information and helpful tips, and I know everyone is grateful for that. We don't have any questions, so as we've all said, please check the website, please reach out. And again, this recording will be made available on the SPSP website, so feel free to revisit and or share with colleagues. We're really grateful that you spent some time with us today and hope to see those applications start coming in here soon. So reach out with questions. Thank you for being here. Don, thank you as always for the incredible content you put together for the product safety community. We really do appreciate it. Thanks.
It's a great community, and it's really rewarding from sitting in the coach's dugout and looking at the product, which is you all on the screen, and the people that are watching this. It's a terrific field, and I'm really pleased that there's some benefit that comes to people who work very hard and very seriously in their profession.
Well, thank you everyone again for being with us today. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Don. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, so.
Bye-bye.